Welcome back to another journey through the vast and mysterious corners of the Star Wars galaxy. Tonight, we're venturing into territory that exists at the very edge where science fiction meets dark fantasy, where the Force itself takes on forms that even the Jedi cannot fully comprehend. We're exploring the Nightsisters of Dathomir, their luminescent green ichor, and the ancient magic that sets them apart from every other Force tradition in the galaxy. Before we descend into these mist-shrouded mysteries, if you enjoy these deep explorations of Star Wars lore, hitting that subscribe button really helps the channel grow and lets me know you want more content like this. Now, settle in as we unravel the secrets of a power older than the Jedi Order itself. The green mist of Dathomir. Picture, if you will, a planet bathed in blood-red light from its dying sun. Dense forests twist and writhe across continents covered in swampland and vegetation that seems almost alive with malevolent intent. The air itself feels heavy here, thick with an energy that makes the hair on your neck stand on end. This is Dathomir, a world where the dark side of the Force permeates everything, seeping from the very ground like water from a spring. And in the depths of this forsaken world, something glows with an otherworldly luminescence. A green mist rises from places deep beneath the surface, curling through ancient stone fortresses, wrapping around the fingers of women who have learned to command it like musicians conducting a symphony of supernatural power. The Nightsisters call this substance ichor. To them, it is not merely a tool, but something living, something sacred. While Jedi speak of the Force as an energy field created by all living things, and Sith bend it to their will through passion and suffering, the Nightsisters have discovered something different entirely. Their magic, as they call it, is the Force made manifest in physical form, a bridge between the spiritual and material worlds that allows them to accomplish feats that would seem impossible to those trained in more traditional Force disciplines. The green glow of Nightsister Ichor has become iconic in Star Wars lore, appearing in animation, video games, and most recently in live action through the Ahsoka series. It represents something fundamentally different from the blue glow of a Jedi's Force push or the crackling red lightning of a Sith Lord. This is magic with a K, a deliberate spelling that sets it apart from mere sleight of hand. This is power drawn from the planet itself, from blood and trees and mist, channeled through ancient rituals and incantations spoken in a language that predates modern galactic basic. The Nightsisters are witches in the truest sense, practitioners of an arcane art that the galaxy at large struggles to understand or categorize. What makes the Nightsisters particularly fascinating is that unlike the Sith, who are corrupted and consumed by the dark side, the Nightsisters maintain their sense of self, even while wielding powers that would drive most Force users mad. They grow up steeped in the dark side, breathing it in with every breath on their mist-shrouded world. Yet they use it as a tool rather than becoming its slave. It is a delicate balance, one that speaks to the sophistication of their techniques and the strength of their community bonds. Where the Sith are defined by the rule of two and constant betrayal, the Nightsisters are bound together in covens, their power amplified through collective ritual rather than diminished by sharing. The visual signature of their power is unmistakable. When a Nightsister calls upon her magic, that green mist appears, swirling and coalescing into whatever form she requires. It might become a sword, capable of dueling a Jedi Master. It might wrap around a victim like ethereal chains, binding them in place or twisting their perception of reality. It might flow into the broken body of a warrior, transforming him into something far stronger and more dangerous than he was before. The Ichor is versatile in ways that traditional Force abilities are not, limited only by the skill and imagination of the witch wielding it. But to truly understand the Nightsisters and their magic, we need to go back before the Clone Wars that saw their near extinction, back before the rise of the Galactic Empire, back even before the founding of the Jedi Order itself, to a time measured not in years but in epochs, when the first of these witches rode the backs of space whales between galaxies and discovered a planet that would become their sanctuary for millennia. The origins, from Peridea to Dathomir. The revelation that came in the Ahsoka series fundamentally changed our understanding of the Nightsisters. For years, we had known them as the mysterious witches of Dathomir, isolated on their remote world in the Outer Rim. The stories suggested they were descendants of an exiled Jedi named Aaliyah, though these tales were contradictory and shrouded in legend. But when Morgan Elsbeth arrived at the extragalactic world of Peridea, the truth emerged from the mists of deep time. Peridea was the original homeworld of the Dathomiri. The Nightsisters did not originate in our galaxy at all. They came from another spiral of stars entirely, from a world that now serves as a graveyard for the massive creatures known as Purgil. These space whales, capable of natural hyperspace travel, were called the Travelers by the ancient Dathomiri. It was aboard these magnificent beasts that the first Nightsisters made the journey across the vast intergalactic void, riding through hyperspace to reach what we know as the main Star Wars galaxy. The timeline suggests this migration occurred thousands upon thousands of years ago, potentially around the same period when the Jedi Order was first being founded. The Nightsisters are ancient in ways that few Force traditions can claim. Why they left Peridea remains a mystery, wrapped in enigma. The planet itself bears signs of some catastrophic event, a war that left it barren and dead, with only ruins remaining of what was once the center of the witch kingdom of the Dathomiri. perhaps they were fleeing something, some threat that made even the powerful Nightsisters seek refuge in flight. Perhaps it was exploration, a desire to spread their influence to new worlds. Or perhaps they simply followed the Purgil, recognizing in these creatures a connection to the cosmic mysteries they sought to understand. Whatever the reason, a great migration occurred, with the bulk of the Nightsister population leaving their homeworld behind. But not all of them left. The Great Mothers, a trio of witches whose power seems to exceed even that of the legendary Mother Talzin, remained on Peridia. Whether they were exiled, whether they chose to stay as guardians of their ancient homeland, or whether they were simply unable to leave for reasons we don't yet understand, these three witches have endured on Peridia for untold centuries. Their presence there, along with their eventual alliance with Grand Admiral Thrawn, suggests that the story of Peridia and the Nightsisters is far from over. But we'll return to the Great Mothers later in our journey. The Nightsisters who did leave Peridia eventually discovered Dathomir. This was no random choice. The planet called to them, resonated with something in their very nature. You see, Dathomir was already a vergence in the Force, a place where the dark side was unusually strong even before the Nightsisters arrived. The reasons for this remain unclear. Perhaps some ancient catastrophe or cosmic event had marked the world. Perhaps the native flora and fauna, with their tendency toward aggression and survival, had created a dark side echo over millions of years of predation. Or perhaps the Force simply manifests differently in different places, and Dathomir was one of those rare worlds where the barrier between the physical and spiritual is naturally thin. When the Nightsisters arrived, they found a world already inhabited. The Fromprath, an exploitative species, were attempting to colonize Dathomir and strip it of its natural resources. This proved to be a fatal mistake. The Nightsisters, scattered and disorganized though they might have been, united against this common threat. Using their magic and the natural dangers of Dathomir itself, including the fearsome rancors that would become synonymous with the planet, they drove the Fromprath away. The technology left behind by these would-be colonizers was repurposed into Nightsister weapons, most notably their distinctive energy bows that glow with the same green luminescence as their magic. With the Fromprath expelled, the Nightsisters claimed Dathomir as their new home. They named it after themselves, or perhaps after their ancient origins, a memorial to Dathomiri heritage even as they built a new civilization on this dark and dangerous world. They carved massive stone fortresses into the mountains, structures that seemed to grow organically from the rock itself. These became the centers of their covens, places where the ichor flowed most freely and where their most powerful rituals could be conducted. The architecture of these fortresses is distinctive, all sharp angles and ominous silhouettes. Designed to intimidate, as much as to protect. The connection between the Nightsisters and Dathomir itself became symbiotic. The planet's natural dark side energies resonated with and amplified their magic. In turn, their presence and their rituals seemed to deepen those energies, creating a feedback loop that made each successive generation of Nightsisters more powerful. The ichor that they drew upon, that green, luminescent mist, came from the depths of Dathomir itself. It was as if the planet was bleeding its essence up through layers of stone, offering its power to those who knew how to ask for it. The Nightsisters described their magic as arising from blood, trees, and mist, a trinity of sources that were all abundantly present on their new homeworld. But this power came with a price. Dathomir's dark side energies meant that the Nightsisters, by necessity, learned to wield the dark side without being consumed by it. They developed techniques and philosophies quite different from either the Jedi's denial of emotion or the Sith's embrace of passion. The Nightsisters acknowledged the darkness in themselves and in their world, but they channeled it through ritual and community, rather than allowing it to isolate and corrupt them as individuals. Their matriarchal society, with its strong bonds between sisters, served as a safeguard against the kind of self-destructive megalomania that plagued the Sith. You could not easily betray your coven when your power depended partly on collective ritual, when your sisters could sense your intentions through the very ichor you all shared. The Nightsisters also dominated the male population of Dathomir, the Night Brothers. These Zabrak warriors, including famous figures like Darth Maul and his brother Savage Opress, were kept in separate villages and used as servants, breeding stock, and occasionally as soldiers or assassins. This might seem cruel to outsiders, but from the Nightsisters' perspective, it was a natural hierarchy based on magical ability. The males of Dathomir did not have the same innate connection to the ichor, the same ability to channel the planet's power through ritual and spell. Therefore, they served those who did. For thousands of years, this society persisted in relative isolation. The Nightsisters kept largely to themselves, occasionally encountering outsiders but rarely engaging with galactic politics or culture. Their reputation spread, however. Rumors of the witches of Dathomir, of their dark magic and their fierce warriors, made the planet a place that most spacers avoided. Even pirates and smugglers, not known for their caution, tended to give Dathomir a wide berth. This isolation suited the Nightsisters perfectly. They had little interest in the affairs of the Republic or the Jedi Order. Their concerns were local, focused on maintaining their power over Dathomir and perfecting their mastery of the Ichor. But isolation could not last forever. Eventually, as the galaxy grew more interconnected, and as the Clone Wars brought conflict to even the most remote corners of known space, the Nightsisters would be drawn into events far larger than themselves. Their ancient magic and their fierce independence would make them both valuable allies and dangerous enemies. And the green mist of Ichor would be seen beyond Dathomir's swamps for the first time in millennia. The nature of Ichor, living magic. To understand Nightsister magic, you must first understand that it is fundamentally different from how the Jedi and Sith perceive and utilize the Force. When a Jedi uses the Force, they are tapping into an invisible energy field that binds all living things together. They feel it flowing through them and around them, and through discipline and training, they learn to manipulate this flow to achieve various effects: telekinesis, enhanced physical abilities, precognition. These are all manifestations of a Force user directing the underlying energy of the universe according to their will. The Sith take a similar approach, but with a crucial difference in philosophy. They don't simply manipulate the Force, they dominate it, bending it to their desires through intensity of emotion and strength of will. Sith powers like Force Lightning and Force Drain work by channeling passion, usually anger or hatred, into destructive applications of Force energy. But whether light or dark, Jedi and Sith are working with something essentially invisible and intangible. Their powers might have visible effects. Objects might move, or lightning might crackle, but the Force itself remains unseen. The Nightsisters Ichor is different. It is the Force made visible, made tangible, made into something you could theoretically touch and hold. This green luminescent mist rises from deep within Dathomir, from places in the planet's crust where the barrier between physical and spiritual has worn thin over millions of years. The Nightsisters don't simply use the Force, they summon it, calling it forth from its hidden reservoirs and shaping it like clay into whatever form they need. This is why their powers often look more like magic in the fantasy sense than the science fiction powers of Jedi and Sith. They are literally pulling supernatural energy out of the air and weaving it into spells. The Ichor responds to incantations, to words spoken in the ancient Dathomirian language. These aren't mere focus aids, like a Jedi might use meditation to center themselves. The words themselves have power, syllables that resonate with the Ichor and cause it to manifest in specific ways. Mother Talzin could recite a chant and bring the dead back to a mockery of life. Another Nightsister could speak different words and create a potion that grants invisibility. The language is a key, unlocking particular effects through combinations of sounds that have been refined over thousands of years of practice. This is why Nightsister magic is often described as more ritualistic than traditional Force use. It requires specific components, specific words, specific gestures, all coming together in the right sequence to achieve the desired effect. But the Ichor is not merely a tool, not just supernatural energy waiting to be shaped. The Nightsisters describe it as living, as having a will, or at least a nature of its own. One Nightsister named Shelish explained it beautifully when she said that magic is a living thing, that it arises from blood and trees and mist, that it flows through your veins. This suggests that the Ichor is intimately connected to the life force of Dathomir itself, to the slow decay of organic matter in the swamps, to the blood running through the veins of every creature on the planet, to the mist that rises each evening to shroud the forests. It is as if the planet itself is alive in a way that goes beyond having a living biosphere. As if Dathomir has a consciousness, or at least an animating spirit that the Nightsisters have learned to communicate with. This connection to life and death is crucial to understanding Nightsister magic. While the Jedi focus on the living force, the energy generated by living things in the present moment, and contemplate the cosmic force, the binding energy of space and time, the Nightsisters seem to work with something in between, or perhaps orthogonal to both. They draw power from decay as much as from life, from the moment of transition when something living becomes something dead. This is why so much of their magic revolves around death and resurrection, transformation and rebirth. They are working with the boundary itself, with that liminal space where one state becomes another. The physical properties of ichor are fascinating. It appears as a luminescent green mist or smoke, sometimes wispy and ethereal, sometimes thick and almost substantial. It can be shaped into solid objects that persist for varying amounts of time, depending on the skill of the witch creating them. Mother Talzin famously conjured a sword from pure ichor that was solid enough to duel Mace Windu, one of the greatest lightsaber duelists in the Jedi Order. The weapon held up against a lightsaber's plasma blade, which suggests that the ichor can be made as dense and resistant as any physical material when properly manipulated. The color is also significant. Green, in Star Wars, is often associated with life and growth. Think of the green lightsabers wielded by Jedi who are particularly connected to the living force, or the lush green worlds that serve as strongholds of the light side. But the green of Nightsister Ichor is different, more sickly, more luminescent in an unsettling way. It is the green of phosphorescence in swamp gas, of bioluminescent fungi growing on dead wood, of eyes glowing in the darkness. It suggests life, yes, but life feeding on death, growth emerging from decay. It is simultaneously beautiful and disturbing, which captures the essential nature of the Nightsisters themselves. Ichor can also corrupt. When a kyber crystal, one of those force-attuned crystals that power lightsabers, is soaked in ichor, it becomes perverted. The crystal's natural connection to the force is twisted, and if used in a lightsaber, the blade emits that distinctive green smoke, even while ignited. These tainted Nightsister crystals are rare but powerful, weapons that combine the cutting power of a lightsaber with the supernatural properties of Nightsister magic. Mother Talzin created one such weapon, and the result was formidable enough to concern even Mace Windu during their duel. But perhaps the most important aspect of ichor is its relationship to the user. Unlike the Force, which any being with enough midichlorians can theoretically learn to use, ichor seems to require initiation. To wield Nightsister magic, one must first breathe in a special energized mist that infuses the blood with ichor. This is not a metaphor. The ichor literally enters the practitioner's bloodstream, becoming part of them at a cellular level. From that point forward, they can call upon it, channel it, shape it according to the spells they have learned. But this also means that using Nightsister magic is more physically taxing than using the Force through traditional methods. You are not merely directing external energy. You are using a substance that is partly inside you, which means overuse can physically exhaust or even harm the practitioner. This intimate connection between the witch and the ichor creates a feedback relationship. The more a night sister uses her magic, the more the ichor becomes integrated into her being, and the more powerful she becomes. But it also means she becomes more dependent on the source of that ichor, Dathomir itself. This is why most Night Sisters rarely left their homeworld. Away from the planet's natural ichor wells, their power would gradually diminish. They could still perform magic, but it would be weaker, more difficult, more draining. This is a crucial limitation that helps explain why, despite their formidable abilities, the Night Sisters never became a major galactic power. They were tied to their world in a way that neither the Jedi nor the Sith were tied to any particular location. Yet, for those who mastered it, Ichor offered possibilities that traditional Force training simply could not match. The ability to create solid objects from nothing, to resurrect the dead, to transform living beings into enhanced versions of themselves. These were powers that even the mightiest Jedi or Sith lords would struggle to replicate. And this brings us to what the Night Sisters could actually do with their magic, to the specific powers and abilities that made them such a formidable force, despite their isolation and relatively small numbers. The powers of Night Sister magic. The range of abilities demonstrated by skilled Night Sisters is staggering, covering everything from simple enhancement of physical abilities to powers that seem to defy the laws of nature themselves. Let us explore these powers in detail, examining not just what they can do, but how they differ from analogous abilities used by Jedi and Sith. The most infamous and terrifying Night Sister power is necromancy, the ability to raise the dead and compel them to serve. This is not resurrection in the sense of truly bringing someone back to life with their consciousness intact. Rather, it is reanimation, the forced return of a corpse to a mockery of life. The chant of resurrection, the spell used to accomplish this feat, is one of the most powerful and sinister techniques in the Night Sister arsenal. When properly performed, it manifests as a greenish mist channeled through a crystalline orb or similar focus. The mist flows into burial pods where the dead have been preserved, and slowly, horrifyingly, the corpses begin to move again. These zombie Night Sisters retain some combat capability. They can fight and follow basic commands, but they lack true intelligence or will. They are extensions of the necromancer's power, animated by her constant chanting. This is a crucial limitation. Unlike some forms of undead in fantasy literature that persist indefinitely, Night Sister zombies only remain active as long as the witch who raised them maintains the spell. If she stops chanting, if her concentration is broken, or if she is killed, the zombies immediately collapse back into lifelessness. Old Daka, the eldest and most powerful of the Night Sisters during the Clone Wars, could maintain the chant of resurrection while simultaneously coordinating her undead army in battle, a feat that speaks to her incredible power and focus. The tactical applications of this ability are obvious. Imagine defending your fortress against an overwhelming force of battle droids, and suddenly an army of undead warriors rises from their graves to reinforce your living defenders. The zombies feel no pain, no fear, no exhaustion. They can be destroyed, but only by complete dismemberment or decapitation. Blaster fire that would drop a living warrior might pass through a zombie with minimal effect. During the Battle of Dathomir, Old Daka's army of the dead turned what should have been a one-sided massacre into a genuine fight, holding General Grievous's droid forces at bay long enough for the living Nightsisters to mount a defense. But necromancy is just the beginning. Transformation magic allows Nightsisters to fundamentally alter living beings, reshaping flesh and bone and enhancing physical capabilities far beyond natural limits. The most famous example of this is the transformation of Savage Opress. Originally a Night Brother of relatively normal size and strength, Savage was selected by Asajj Ventress to become a weapon against Count Dooku. Mother Talzin subjected him to an intensive magical transformation ritual, using Ichor to remake him completely. The ritual was elaborate and clearly agonizing for the subject. Savage was placed in a cauldron filled with the waters of life, a sacred substance found on Dathomir. Mother Talzin and her sisters chanted in the old language while Ichor swirled around the submerged warrior. When he finally emerged, he was no longer the same person. Physically, he had grown enormously, becoming a towering brute of rippling muscle. His strength had increased proportionally, making him capable of going toe-to-toe with powerful Jedi like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker. But the transformation went beyond just physical enhancement. His connection to the Force itself had been augmented, giving him abilities he had never possessed before. And his mind, his very personality, had been altered. His natural aggression amplified into barely controlled rage. This transformation demonstrates both the power and the danger of Nightsister magic. Yes, they could create a warrior capable of threatening even Jedi Masters, but the process was not perfectly controlled. Savage retained some degree of free will, enough that he eventually broke away from Mother Talzin's influence to follow his own path. And the mental changes, the increased aggression and decreased rationality, were side effects that could make such enhanced beings as dangerous to their creators as to their enemies. Still, the ability to take a relatively ordinary Force-sensitive individual and transform them into something far more powerful is an application of magic that has no real equivalent in Jedi or Sith techniques. Illusion magic is another area where the Nightsisters excel. By manipulating Ichor, they can create false images, make themselves or others appear different, or even become completely invisible. The invisibility potions created by Mother Talzin are particularly notable. These are not metaphorical, they are actual potions. Liquids that, when their vapor is walked through, render the person invisible to normal sight. Asajj Ventress and other Nightsister assassins used these potions to infiltrate Count Dooku's fortress undetected. The effect was not perfect. A keen observer could still detect distortions in the air or faint shadows, but against ordinary guards or even security systems, it was remarkably effective. The illusory aspects of Nightsister magic extend to mental manipulation as well. While not as refined as a Jedi mind trick or as brutal as Sith mental domination, Nightsisters can use their spells to influence thoughts, plant suggestions, or even repair damaged minds. Mother Talzin demonstrated this when she healed Darth Maul after he was found on Lotho Minor, driven insane by his defeat at Obi-Wan Kenobi's hands and years of isolation. She used her magic to restore his memories, repair his fractured psyche, and even give him new mechanical legs to replace those he'd lost. This kind of comprehensive healing, addressing both mind and body simultaneously, shows the holistic nature of Nightsister magic. They don't separate the physical from the mental or spiritual. They see all of it as interconnected and address problems accordingly. Conjuration is the ability to create physical objects from pure ichor, and it is one of the most visually impressive Nightsister powers. We've mentioned Mother Talzin's ichor sword, but the possibilities go far beyond weapons. Nightsisters can conjure goblets to hold liquids, create temporary structures or barriers, even fashion tools or ritual implements as needed. The objects persist as long as the witch maintains concentration, though particularly skilled practitioners like Talzin can create items that last hours or even days without constant attention. These conjured objects have mass and solidity. They can be touched and used just like any physical item, but they retain that characteristic green glow, marking them as supernatural in origin. There are limitations, of course. The more complex an object, the more difficult it is to create and maintain. A simple blade is relatively easy. A complex mechanism with moving parts would be exponentially more challenging, and the objects cannot contain or replicate advanced technology. You could conjure something that looks like a blaster, but it wouldn't actually function as one. The power is most useful for creating weapons, tools, and simple items that can be used immediately and then allowed to dissipate once their purpose is served. Teleportation is a rare ability even among Nightsisters, but those who master it can dissolve their physical form into green mist and reconstitute elsewhere. Mother Talzin used this ability to travel great distances across the galaxy, while her body remained on Dathomir, projecting herself as a semi-corporeal phantom that could interact with the physical world to a limited degree. Marin, one of the few Nightsisters to survive the Battle of Dathomir, demonstrated a different application, using teleportation to move short distances in combat, appearing behind enemies or passing through obstacles that would normally block her path. The distinction seems to be between spiritual projection, where consciousness travels while the body remains behind, and actual physical teleportation, where the body itself is transformed into mist and moved. Both applications are incredibly advanced and require years of training to master. Precognition and divination allow Nightsisters to perceive possible futures or locate distant objects and people. Mother Talzin used a crystal orb to show Savage Opress visions of his brother Darth Maul, helping him locate his long-lost sibling despite Maul being hidden on a remote junk world in the Outer Rim. This is similar to the Force visions that Jedi sometimes experience, but more controlled and directed. The Night Sister actively seeks out specific information rather than waiting for visions to come spontaneously. The Great Mothers on Peridia took this even further, claiming to read the very threads of fate itself, to see not just what might happen, but what must happen according to destiny. Whether this is a more powerful form of precognition or simply religious interpretation of their visions remains unclear. Energy manipulation is fundamental to nearly all Night Sister magic. The green lightning that Mother Talzin could project from her fingertips is similar in function to Sith Force lightning, but powered by Ichor rather than pure dark side emotion. Night Sisters can also create energy shields, barriers of solidified ichor that can deflect blaster bolts or even lightsaber strikes. These shields have the advantage of being visible, unlike the invisible force barriers sometimes used by Jedi, which means they can be positioned more precisely and maintained more easily. The trade-off is that they're obviously magical, clearly marking the user as a Night Sister, which might not be desirable in situations requiring subtlety. Perhaps the most philosophically interesting Night Sister power is their ability to manipulate the boundary between life and death for themselves. When truly threatened, a sufficiently powerful Night Sister like Mother Talzin could dissolve into pure spirit form, abandoning her physical body temporarily to avoid destruction. In this state, she was effectively immortal, unable to be killed by any conventional means. But she was also limited in what she could do, unable to affect the physical world as directly as she could in corporeal form. It was a form of survival, not victory, a way to escape when all other options had failed. Talzin existed in this spirit state for years after the Battle of Dathomir, occasionally manifesting to communicate with her sons or influence events, but never able to fully return until Darth Maul eventually helped her reconstruct a physical body through a complex ritual that ultimately led to her final death. All of these powers, impressive as they are individually, become even more formidable when combined through coordinated ritual. A coven of Night Sisters working together could accomplish feats that would be impossible for any of them alone. This collective approach to magic is another way they differed from the Sith, whose rule of two philosophy actively discouraged cooperation. The Night Sisters understood that power could be multiplied through unity, that their combined strength was greater than the sum of its parts, and for thousands of years, this understanding kept them safe and prosperous on their isolated world. But that isolation could not last forever, and when the Night Sisters finally drew the attention of the Sith Lord who would become Emperor, their formidable powers would be tested against the most destructive military force in the galaxy. The green mist of Ichor, which had protected them for so long, would prove insufficient against the cold efficiency of droid armies and the ruthless cunning of Count Dooku and General Grievous. Mother Talzin, the clan mother's mastery. To understand the full potential of Night Sister magic, one must study its greatest practitioner, Mother Talzin. she was not just another witch, not merely a powerful Force user who happened to follow different traditions. Talzin was something more, a figure of such potency that she drew the attention of Darth Sidious himself, impressed and perhaps even intimidated the future Emperor enough that he saw her as a potential rival who needed to be eliminated. Mother Talzin's rise to power among the fractious Nightsister clans was no accident. Dathomir had long been divided among multiple covens, each led by its own clan mother, each jealously guarding its territory and secrets. The Nightsisters were united by their shared magical traditions and their dominance over the Night Brothers, but they were far from a cohesive political entity. Rivalries between clans were common, and conflicts over territory, resources, or particularly promising male warriors could and did lead to magical duels and even small-scale wars between covens. Talzin changed this through a combination of superior magical ability, political acumen, and sheer force of personality. She gradually brought the other clans under her authority. The process took decades, but by the time of the Clone Wars, she was recognized as the undisputed leader of all Nightsisters, the clan mother who spoke for Dathomir itself. This was unprecedented in recent Nightsister history. How she accomplished it remains partly shrouded in mystery, but accounts suggest she defeated rival clan mothers in magical combat, absorbed their covens into her own, and demonstrated powers that even the most skeptical witches could not deny. Her appearance was as striking as her power. Talzin's skin was pale, almost corpse-like, marked with intricate tattoos that glowed with the same green luminescence as her magic. Her eyes held an intensity that could unsettle even hardened warriors. She dressed in elaborate robes that seemed to be woven from shadows and mist, adorned with bones and talismans that marked her status as clan mother. When she moved, ichor seemed to flow around her like a living cloak, responding to her slightest gesture. She was simultaneously regal and terrifying, a figure who commanded absolute loyalty from her followers and inspired dread in her enemies. But Talzin's ambitions extended beyond Dathomir. She recognized that her people's isolation, while providing safety, also limited their potential. The galaxy was vast, filled with opportunities for those bold enough to seize them. And so, when a hooded figure arrived on Dathomir many years before the Clone Wars, claiming to be a Sith Lord and seeking knowledge of the dark side, Talzin saw an opportunity. This figure was Darth Sidious, not yet the Emperor, still accumulating power and eliminating potential rivals before his grand plan could unfold. The relationship between Talzin and Sidious was complex, equal parts alliance and rivalry. Sidious was fascinated by Nightsister magic, by these techniques that achieved effects similar to Sith powers but through completely different mechanisms. He wanted to learn their secrets, to add their knowledge to his own vast understanding of the dark side. Talzin, for her part, saw in Sidious a pathway to galactic influence. If she could bind this ambitious Sith to her cause, perhaps through an apprenticeship or even a romantic entanglement, then the Nightsisters might finally emerge from their isolation to claim a place of power in the broader galaxy. She offered him one of her sons as an apprentice. This was no small gesture. It was a demonstration of trust, a potential blood bond between the Nightsisters and the Sith. The boy she selected was young, but already showing signs of extraordinary force sensitivity. His Zabrak heritage, with its natural resilience and affinity for combat, combined with his training in Nightsister magic, made him a promising candidate. Sidious accepted the offer, took the boy, and began training him in the Sith arts. This boy would eventually become known as Darth Maul. But Sidious betrayed Talzin's trust in the most fundamental way possible. He took Maul not as a bridge between their traditions, but as a weapon to be used and eventually discarded. He stripped away much of the boy's Nightsister training, replacing it with Sith philosophy and technique. He deliberately kept Maul's origins a secret from him, denying him knowledge of his mother and his heritage. And worst of all, Sidious had no intention of honoring whatever agreements or understandings he had reached with Talzin. He used her, learned what he could from the Nightsisters, and then simply left, taking her son with him and leaving her with nothing but empty promises. The betrayal left deep scars. Talzin's ambitions for galactic influence were thwarted. Her son was stolen and corrupted, turned into a tool of the very Sith order that had manipulated her. And she herself had been made to look foolish, a powerful witch outwitted by a more cunning opponent. But Talzin was patient. She would wait for her opportunity for revenge, would build her power and her plans, would ensure that when the time came, Darth Sidious would pay for his treachery. This desire for vengeance would ultimately drive many of her actions during the Clone Wars, and would make her a persistent thorn in Sidious's side even after the Nightsisters had been nearly wiped out. Her magical abilities, as demonstrated throughout the Clone Wars, were genuinely extraordinary. We've already discussed some of them: the transformation of Savage Opress, the creation of weapons from pure ichor, her ability to exist in spirit form. But the full scope of her power deserves deeper examination. When Asajj Ventress returned to Dathomir after being betrayed by Count Dooku, Talzin welcomed her back into the fold and immediately began plotting revenge against Ventress's former master. The plan she devised was characteristically ambitious. She would create a warrior powerful enough to defeat Dooku, and then use that warrior to strike at Darth Sidious himself. The ritual to transform Savage Opress was conducted at night, under the light of Dathomir's moons, with the full coven assembled to lend their power. The chanting went on for hours as ichor swirled in patterns too complex to follow, as the waters of life bubbled and glowed with increasing intensity. Talzin directed it all, her voice rising above the others, her hands weaving patterns in the air that left trails of green luminescence. When Savage finally emerged from the cauldron, he was exactly what Talzin had promised: a weapon of devastating power. The fact that this weapon would eventually break free of her control and follow his own path does not diminish the achievement of the transformation itself. Talzin's confrontation with Mace Windu on Dathomir demonstrated her combat capabilities. When Jar Jar Binks and Windu arrived on the planet during the Clone Wars on a diplomatic mission that was secretly a trap, Talzin revealed herself and attacked. The duel that followed pitted one of the Jedi Order's greatest warriors against the clan mother of the Nightsisters. Lightsaber versus Ichor blade. Jedi technique versus witch magic. And while Windu ultimately escaped, it was not a decisive victory. Talzin matched him move for move, her conjured weapon holding up against his lightsaber, her speed and strength augmented by magic to near Jedi levels. She demonstrated telekinesis, hurling massive stone blocks at her opponent. She summoned lightning from her fingertips. She even attempted to drain his life force, to use his own strength against him. It took all of Windu's considerable skill and power to fight her to a standstill and escape with his life. But perhaps Talzin's most impressive feat was her astral projection across vast interstellar distances. While her physical body remained on Dathomir, she could send her consciousness anywhere in the galaxy, manifesting as a semi-corporeal phantom composed entirely of green ichor. In this form, she could speak, could perform limited magic, could even physically interact with objects and people to some degree. She used this ability to guide her sons, appearing to Savage Opress to show him visions of Darth Maul's location, appearing to Maul himself after his rescue, to restore his sanity and give him new legs. The amount of power required to maintain such a projection must have been immense. Yet Talzin did it repeatedly, for extended periods, while simultaneously managing the affairs of her coven and defending Dathomir from various threats. Her ability to heal minds was particularly notable. When Savage brought Maul back to Dathomir, he was barely recognizable as the Sith apprentice he had once been. Years of isolation and madness on Lotho Minor, surviving on vermin and junk, had reduced him to a gibbering wreck who couldn't even remember his own name. Talzin looked into that broken mind and saw not just damage, but potential. She performed a ritual that delved deep into Maul's psyche, sorting through fractured memories, reconnecting severed neural pathways, rebuilding his sense of self from the fragments that remained. It was not merely healing, it was reconstruction, the magical equivalent of reconstructive surgery performed on consciousness itself. And when it was done, Maul was not just sane. He was arguably more focused and dangerous than he had ever been. His hatred for Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Sidious refined into a razor-sharp edge that would drive him for years to come. Talzin's maternal love for her sons was one of her defining characteristics, but it was a complicated love, fierce and possessive in ways that outsiders might find disturbing. She genuinely cared for Maul and Savage, wanted them to be powerful and successful, was willing to risk everything to help them. But she also saw them as extensions of her own will, as tools to accomplish her goals, even as she worked to accomplish theirs. When Savage was killed by Darth Sidious, Talzin's grief was real and profound. When Maul was captured by Sidious, she was willing to sacrifice everything to save him. Yet she never hesitated to use them, to put them in danger, to manipulate their emotions and desires to serve her purposes. It was the love of a Nightsister clan mother, absolute and unwavering, but also pragmatic and strategic. Her final gambit, attempting to use Maul as a conduit to drain Darth Sidious's life force and claim his power for herself, was characteristically bold. She had Maul captured and brought to a Nightsister ritual site where she could use him as a connection to Sidious, exploiting the bond between master and former apprentice. The ritual required all of her remaining power, all of her skill, pushing her to her absolute limits. For a few moments, it seemed to be working. Green ichor surrounded both Maul and Sidious, draining the Sith Lord's strength while Talzin grew more solid, more powerful. She was literally pulling power from one of the most formidable dark side users in galactic history, using magic to accomplish what no other Force user had managed. But General Grievous intervened, stabbing Talzin through the chest with his lightsabers at the critical moment when she was most vulnerable, fully materialized and unable to transform back into spirit form. She died there, her physical form dissipating into green mist one final time, but this time with no spirit left behind to reconstitute. Mother Talzin, the most powerful Nightsister in recent history, the clan mother who had unified the covens and stood against both Jedi and Sith, was gone. Her death marked the true end of the Nightsisters as a major power in the galaxy. Without her leadership, the few survivors would scatter, hiding and trying to preserve their traditions in whatever way they could. Talzin's legacy is complicated. She was undeniably powerful, skilled, and intelligent. She loved her sons and her people. She tried to carve out a place for the Nightsisters in the larger galactic community, but she was also ruthless, manipulative, and willing to sacrifice others to achieve her goals. She made enemies of both the Jedi Order and the Sith, which ultimately proved fatal. Her ambitions exceeded her ability to protect what she had built, and her desire for revenge against Darth Sidious, while understandable, led her to make increasingly desperate and dangerous decisions that put her entire people at risk. Yet there's something admirable in her refusal to simply accept defeat, in her determination to fight back against forces that vastly outnumbered and outgunned her. Talzin represented the Nightsisters at their peak, showing the galaxy what a clan mother at the height of her power could accomplish. The green glow of her magic, the terror she inspired in her enemies, the loyalty she commanded from her followers. All of these are part of the legend of Mother Talzin. She was the last great Nightsister leader before the fall, and her loss would be felt for generations to come. The Battle of Dathomir, when magic met machine. The destruction of the Nightsisters was not a sudden surprise attack, but rather the culmination of a series of events that had been building throughout the Clone Wars. It began with Asajj Ventress, Count Dooku's assassin and former apprentice, who was herself a Nightsister by birth, though she had been separated from Dathomir as a child. When Darth Sidious ordered Dooku to eliminate Ventress, seeing her as a potential threat to his plans, Dooku betrayed her in the most brutal way possible, ordering her own clone trooper forces to execute her mid-mission. Ventress survived, barely, and fled back to the only home she could remember, Dathomir. Mother Talzin welcomed her back, not with recriminations for having left or accusations of disloyalty, but with open arms and immediate plans for revenge. This is telling about Nightsister culture. Family bonds, even those weakened by years of separation, were stronger than any disagreement. Ventress was a daughter of Dathomir, and that meant she would always have a place among her sisters. Talzin's plan was to create a warrior strong enough to kill Count Dooku and present him as a gift to Darth Sidious, thereby striking at the man who had betrayed both Talzin and Ventress, while also potentially ingratiating themselves with the powerful Sith Lord. The selection of Savage Opress from among the Night Brothers and his subsequent transformation have already been discussed, but it's worth noting that this was where things began to spiral out of Talzin's control. Savage was sent to Dooku as a supposed apprentice, with secret programming to kill the Count when the opportunity arose. But Dooku was no fool. He recognized the trap, and through a combination of Sith training and psychological manipulation, he began to break through the Nightsister conditioning. Savage's assassination attempt failed, and worse, it revealed to Dooku and Sidious that the Nightsisters were actively working against them. This could not be tolerated. Darth Sidious understood that Talzin represented a genuine threat to his plans. She was too powerful, too cunning, and too motivated by revenge to be left alone. More fundamentally, she represented an alternative path to dark side power that existed outside of Sith control. As long as the Nightsisters thrived, there would always be Force users in the galaxy who did not answer to the Sith, who had their own traditions and their own sources of power. For Sidious's grand vision of absolute Sith dominance to succeed, the Nightsisters had to be eliminated. The order came down from Sidious to Dooku with crystal clarity. Destroy the Nightsisters. Not defeat them, not subjugate them, not force them into submission, but completely eradicate them as a functional society. Dooku selected General Grievous to lead the assault, which was a calculated choice. Grievous was not Force-sensitive, which meant he had no connection to the mystical energies that the Nightsisters wielded. Their precognition, their ability to sense intentions through the Force, their various mental influence powers, all of these would be less effective against a cyborg whose mind was partly mechanical. And Grievous was utterly ruthless. A killing machine who would not hesitate, would not show mercy, would not be swayed by any appeal to honor or compassion. Grievous arrived at Dathomir with a massive droid army, hyena bombers, vulture droids, countless battle droids, and most ominously, the the heavy artillery that could reduce stone fortresses to rubble. The Nightsisters had warning of his approach. Their precognition was still functional enough to sense a threat of this magnitude approaching. Talzin ordered all of the covens to gather at the main fortress, consolidating their forces for what was coming. The Nightsisters were skilled warriors, enhanced by magic and armed with their distinctive energy bows and blades, but they numbered only in the hundreds at most, against an army of thousands of droids supported by overwhelming firepower. The outcome seemed predetermined. But the Nightsisters had one advantage that Grievous had not fully accounted for: their magic. As the droid army advanced through Dathomir's misty forests toward the Nightsister stronghold, they began their defense. Ventress and a team of her sisters used invisibility potions to infiltrate behind enemy lines, striking at droid commanders and control units before vanishing back into the mist. Other Nightsisters used their energy bows to pick off droids from hidden positions, their green energy bolts cutting through armor with ease. The natural dangers of Dathomir itself became weapons in the Nightsisters' hands, as they lured droid patrols into swamps where rancors lurked, or into areas where carnivorous plants could drag metallic prey to their doom. These guerrilla tactics slowed the droid advance but could not stop it. Grievous was too experienced a commander to be significantly delayed by such methods. He simply accepted the losses, treating his droid soldiers as the expendable resources they were, and continued his methodical advance toward the fortress. The real battle would be fought there, where the Nightsisters would have no choice but to make a stand. As the droids surrounded the fortress and began their assault, Mother Talzin activated the Nightsisters' most desperate defense. She sent word to old Daka, the eldest of the Nightsisters, who had remained in the burial pods where the ancient dead of Dathomir rested. Daka was incredibly old, possibly hundreds of years, her life extended through magic far beyond any natural lifespan. She was frail in appearance, her skin paper thin, her movements slow and deliberate. But her power was immense, refined by centuries of practice. If anyone could perform the chant of resurrection successfully against such overwhelming odds, it was her. Daka began her chant, her voice surprisingly strong despite her apparent age. The green mist of ichor began to flow from her crystalline orb, spreading throughout the underground burial chambers. And slowly, terrifyingly, the dead began to rise. Nightsisters who had fallen in battle years or decades or even centuries ago, their bodies preserved through magic, began to move again. Empty eye sockets glowed with green light. Desiccated limbs moved with unnatural strength. The army of the dead assembled itself in the darkness beneath the fortress. Dozens, then hundreds of zombie warriors waiting for their mistress's command. When Daka released them, the zombies poured out of the fortress's lower levels and straight into the advancing droid army. The effect was immediate and devastating. The droids, programmed for conventional warfare, were momentarily confused by enemies that should have been long dead. Blaster fire that would have stopped living warriors passed through the zombies with minimal effect. The undead warriors had no fear, no sense of self-preservation, no hesitation. They simply attacked with relentless fury, tearing droids apart with their bare hands, wielding ancient weapons with skill that decades of death had not diminished. The battle became chaos. Living Nightsisters fought alongside their undead predecessors, both groups coordinated by Daka's continuous chanting and Talzin's strategic command. Ventress dueled with Grievous himself, her twin lightsabers salvaged from fallen Jedi meeting his four-blade assault in a spectacular display of combat skill. She was enhanced by Nightsister magic, her already considerable abilities augmented by Ichor, allowing her to match the cyborg general move for move. The fortress itself seemed to come alive, with Nightsisters using their magic to drop sections of wall onto advancing droids, or to create barriers of green energy that deflected blaster fire. For a brief moment, it seemed as though the impossible might happen, that the Nightsisters might actually repel this invasion. The army of the dead had turned the tide, creating enough chaos and confusion that the droid forces were thrown back from the fortress walls. Grievous was locked in combat with Ventress and making no progress. The Nightsisters, fighting for their homes and their very survival, were proving that their magic was a match for Separatist technology. The green glow of Ichor was everywhere, swirling through the battle like a living thing, binding the Nightsisters together in their desperate defense. But Grievous was not just a warrior. He was a strategic thinker. He recognized that the zombie army was the key to the Nightsisters' unexpected success, and he knew that necromancy required constant concentration from its practitioner. If he could eliminate old Daka, the entire undead army would collapse. He disengaged from his duel with Ventress, using his superior speed and mechanical strength to simply crash through any obstacles between him and his new target. Nightsisters tried to stop him, throwing everything they had at the advancing cyborg. Energy bolts splashed against his armor. Conjured weapons shattered against his mechanical limbs. Ichor lightning forced him to dodge but could not halt his advance. Grievous reached the chamber where old Daka sat, still chanting, still maintaining her spell. She was surrounded by her sisters, protected by every defensive ward and barrier they could create. But it wasn't enough. Grievous's lightsabers, taken from Jedi he had killed, cut through the barriers like they were made of smoke. The Nightsisters defending Daka threw themselves at him in suicidal attacks, buying seconds with their lives. And Daka herself, sensing what was coming, poured everything she had left into her chant, maintaining the army for just a few moments longer, trying to give her sisters any possible advantage. General Grievous drove his blades through old Daka's chest. The ancient Nightsisters' chant cut off mid-syllable. Her eyes, which had glowed with green light, went dark. Her body slumped forward, death finally claiming what magic had preserved for so long. And across the battlefield, hundreds of zombie Nightsisters collapsed simultaneously, becoming corpses once more. The army of the dead was gone, and with it, the Nightsisters' best chance of survival. What followed was massacre. Without the undead warriors to hold them back, the droid army surged forward with renewed momentum. Grievous rejoined the battle, now targeting the living Nightsisters with ruthless efficiency. One by one, the witches of Dathomir fell. They fought with desperate courage, using every spell and technique they knew, burning through their life force itself to fuel their magic in these final moments. But courage and power could not overcome such overwhelming odds. The droids simply kept coming, an inexhaustible tide of metal and circuits that felt no pain and knew no fear. Mother Talzin made the hardest decision of her life. She ordered the survivors to flee. The battle was lost. The covens were broken, and continuing to fight would only result in complete extinction. Those Nightsisters who could still move abandoned the fortress, vanishing into Dathomir's swamps and forests, using their knowledge of the planet to evade droid patrols. Ventress escaped as well, though her heart was heavy with grief for her fallen sisters, and Talzin herself dissolved into pure spirit form, abandoning her physical body to avoid destruction, becoming a ghost that could watch and wait, but never again be truly present in the material world. The droids completed their work with mechanical thoroughness. The fortress was demolished, reduced to rubble. Every Nightsister they could find was killed. The bodies of the dead were burned. Even the sacred places, the ritual sites, the ancient trees from which ichor flowed, were destroyed wherever possible. General Grievous wanted to ensure that the Nightsisters could never rebuild, never again threaten the Sith's plans. And to a large extent, he succeeded. When his forces finally withdrew from Dathomir, the once powerful society of witches had been reduced to scattered survivors hiding in the wilderness, leaderless and broken. The Battle of Dathomir stands as one of the darkest moments of the Clone Wars, a deliberate genocide ordered by Darth Sidious and executed by Count Dooku and General Grievous. It was not a military target being neutralized. It was an entire culture being erased. The Nightsisters had been part of Dathomir for thousands of years, had built a unique society that combined martial prowess with mystical power, had preserved traditions dating back to their ancient origins on Peridia. And in a single night, almost all of it was destroyed. The green mist of ichor, which had flowed freely across Dathomir for millennia, became rare and precious, something that survivors hoarded and protected because they knew it might never be replenished. The tactical lessons of the battle are worth noting. The Nightsisters proved that their magic could stand against advanced military technology when properly applied. Old Daka's necromancy turned what should have been a one-sided slaughter into a genuine fight. The Nightsisters' guerrilla tactics in the forests caused real disruption to the droid advance, and individual Nightsisters like Ventress demonstrated that with magic enhancement, they could duel even opponents like General Grievous on relatively equal terms. But ultimately, these successes could not overcome the fundamental disparity in numbers and resources. The Separatists could afford to lose thousands of droids. Nightsisters could not afford to lose even one witch. And that simple mathematical reality doomed them from the start. The battle also demonstrated the limitations of Nightsister magic. For all their power, they could not raise enough undead to match a full droid army. Their conjured weapons and barriers could not stand indefinitely against concentrated fire. Their precognition could warn them of danger, but could not always provide a solution. And their connection to Dathomir itself, which had always been their greatest strength, became a weakness when their enemy could simply destroy the places from which their power flowed. The Nightsisters had built their entire society around the assumption that they would always have access to Dathomir's Ichor, that the planet itself would always sustain them. When that assumption was challenged by an enemy willing to destroy the very ground they stood on, they discovered they had no backup plan. Survivors and legacy. From Merrin to Morgan Elspeth. The aftermath of the Battle of Dathomir was a time of desperate survival for the few Nightsisters who had escaped the massacre. These survivors were scattered across the planet, cut off from each other, unable to gather in their traditional covens without risking discovery by the droid patrols that Grievous left behind. Each had to make their own way, using whatever skills and resources they possessed to avoid detection and find some way to continue living in a world that had suddenly become far more hostile. Merrin was one of these survivors, and her story is particularly well documented thanks to her appearances in the video game Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and its sequel, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. She was young when the massacre occurred, still learning the basic techniques of Nightsister magic, not yet initiated into the deeper mysteries. She watched from hiding as her sisters were cut down, as the fortress was destroyed, as everything she had ever known was torn apart in a single night of violence. The trauma of that experience marked her deeply, creating both grief and rage that would fuel her actions for years to come. Merrin fled into the wilderness, eventually finding her way to an ancient tomb on Dathomir, where she could hide from the remaining droid patrols. She was alone there for weeks or perhaps months, with only the spirits of the dead for company, slowly starving as her supplies ran out. It was during this isolation that she encountered a Jedi named Terran Malicos, a survivor of Order 66 who had crash-landed on Dathomir while fleeing the Empire. Malicos was desperate, half-mad from his experiences, and immediately recognized that the planet was saturated with dark-side energy. He sought out Merrin, initially appearing sympathetic to her plight, offering to protect her in exchange for being taught Nightsister magic. What followed was a form of manipulation and abuse. Malicos wanted the Nightsisters' power for himself, believing that their techniques could make him strong enough to survive in the new galaxy that the Empire had created. He used Merrin's grief and isolation against her, positioning himself as a mentor figure while actually exploiting her for his own ends. He encouraged her hatred of the Jedi, blaming them for the fall of the Republic and the rise of the Empire, conveniently neglecting to mention that it was actually the Sith who had orchestrated the Nightsisters' destruction. Under his influence, Merrin grew bitter and dangerous, viewing all outsiders as potential threats. This changed when another Jedi, Cal Kestis, arrived on Dathomir, seeking information about his own quest. Cal was young himself, also traumatized by the events of Order 66, also struggling to find his place in a galaxy that had turned violently against his kind. When he encountered Merrin, she attacked him on sight, using her Nightsister magic to deadly effect. She could teleport short distances in combat, appearing behind him or passing through walls to strike from unexpected angles. She could summon the spirits of dead Nightsisters to aid her, creating spectral warriors that fought alongside her. She could conjure weapons from Ichor, create energy shields, even temporarily paralyze her opponent with a word and a gesture. But Cal recognized that Merrin was being manipulated. He saw through Malicos's lies and exposed the truth about who had actually destroyed the Nightsisters, that it was the Sith, not the Jedi, who had ordered the massacre. This revelation, combined with Cal's genuine empathy for her loss and his own parallel experience of surviving a genocide, broke through Merrin's defenses. She turned against Malicos, using her magic to trap him in stone and clay, burying him alive in the very tomb where he had hidden. And then, hesitantly at first but with growing conviction, she decided to leave Dathomir and join Cal's crew aboard the starship Mantis. Merrin's journey with the crew of the Mantis represents a different kind of Nightsister story. She was the last of her kind as far as she knew, the final practitioner of a tradition that had been almost wiped out. She could have remained on Dathomir, guarding the ruins and mourning the dead, slowly fading away as her power diminished without other Nightsisters to share it with. Instead, she chose to engage with the broader galaxy, to bring her magic to new places, to forge friendships with people who had every reason to distrust the dark side, but who recognized that Merrin herself was more than her powers. Her relationship with Cal and the others taught her that strength could come from connection rather than isolation, that her Nightsister heritage was not something to be ashamed of or to hide, but a source of pride that could coexist with compassion and even heroism. She learned to use her magic not just for combat, but for protection, for healing in her own way, for helping those who could not help themselves. She became, in effect, a new kind of Nightsister, one who walked in the galaxy beyond Dathomir while still honoring the traditions of her people. Merrin's powers evolved during her time with the Mantis crew. She refined her teleportation ability, learning to cover greater distances more quickly. She developed new applications for spirit summoning, creating not just warriors, but also scouts who could explore dangerous areas without risking living allies. She even learned to combine her magic with technology, using Ichor to enhance the ship's systems, or to interface with ancient mechanisms that responded to force-sensitive input. Most importantly, she learned to trust others with knowledge of Nightsister techniques, sharing some of what she knew with Cal to help him understand dark side manifestations they encountered during their adventures. By the time of Jedi Survivor, Merrin had grown into a confident, powerful woman who had largely moved past her trauma, while still honoring the memory of her fallen sisters. She fought alongside Cal against the Imperial Remnant and various other threats, proving repeatedly that a single Nightsister with skill and determination could make a significant difference, even in a galaxy dominated by the Empire. Her continued survival and her ability to thrive rather than merely exist demonstrated that the Nightsisters were not completely destroyed, that their traditions could adapt and endure even in the most hostile circumstances. But Merrin was not the only Nightsister to survive the massacre, though she may have been the only one to follow a heroic path. Morgan Elsbeth took a very different route. one that would eventually lead her back to the very origins of the Nightsisters themselves. Morgan was older than Merrin when the Battle of Dathomir occurred, already a fully trained Nightsister witch with considerable power. She escaped the planet entirely, using the last of her coven's resources to flee off-world before Grievous's forces could kill her. Morgan's survival was driven by rage and a desire for revenge that made even Merrin's early bitterness look mild by comparison. She had lost everything in a single night: her sisters, her home, her entire way of life. And unlike Merrin, who eventually found new purpose with Cal and his crew, Morgan's purpose became singular: rebuild her power by any means necessary and strike back at those who had destroyed the Nightsisters. She recognized that the Republic had fallen and the Empire had risen, which meant the political landscape had changed dramatically. She also recognized that direct confrontation with the Empire would be suicidal, so she took a different approach. Morgan leveraged her knowledge of ancient technologies and her Nightsister magic to become valuable to the Empire. She positioned herself as an expert on rare materials and construction techniques, using this expertise to build a power base on the planet Corvus. There, she established herself as the Imperial Magistrate, ruling the
local population with an iron fist, while strip mining the planet's forests to build weapons for the Empire. Her most significant project was the construction of a massive hyperspace ring, far larger than anything typically built, using ancient Nightsister knowledge of metals and alloys that made the structure more durable and efficient than conventional Imperial engineering could achieve. But Morgan was not simply serving the Empire. She had her own agenda. She sought Grand Admiral Thrawn, the brilliant Chiss strategist who had disappeared into hyperspace during the liberation of Lothal. Taken by a group of Purgil whales that Jedi Padawan Ezra Bridger had called to aid in defeating the Imperial forces there. Morgan believed that Thrawn had been taken to Peridia, the ancient homeworld of the Nightsisters. How she knew this remains unclear, whether it was through Nightsister divination, through research into ancient texts that survived the massacre, or through some other means. But she was absolutely convinced that if she could reach Peridia, she would find not only Thrawn, but also other Nightsisters, survivors who had remained on the original homeworld when the Great Migration occurred millennia ago. This became her obsession, the singular goal that drove every action she took for years. The hyperspace ring she constructed on Corvus was not merely an Imperial project. It was the first step in her plan to reach Peridia. But she needed a map, coordinates to a location in another galaxy entirely. These coordinates were tattooed on the body of Thrawn himself, but with him missing, she needed another source. Through her research into ancient Dathomiri texts and her knowledge of galactic history, Morgan learned that the Purgil whales, the same creatures that had carried the first Nightsisters to the main galaxy, traveled along specific hyperspace routes, and one person had studied these routes extensively: Jedi Master Elsbeth Tano, known as Ahsoka. This brought Morgan into conflict with Ahsoka Tano, a confrontation that occurred in the town of Caladan on Corvus. The duel between them was brief but intense. Morgan wielded a spear made from pure Beskar, Mandalorian iron, one of the few materials that could stand against a lightsaber. She fought with skills honed over decades, enhanced by Nightsister magic that made her faster and stronger than any normal human. But Ahsoka was a veteran of the Clone Wars, trained by Anakin Skywalker himself, with decades of her own combat experience. Morgan fought well, demonstrating technique and power that impressed even Ahsoka. But ultimately, she was defeated and captured. During her imprisonment, Morgan refused to cooperate with the New Republic, refused to reveal her plans or her knowledge of Thrawn's location. She was patient, knowing that eventually an opportunity would come. And it did, in the form of mercenaries hired by other Imperial remnant factions who wanted Thrawn back for their own reasons. Morgan freed and immediately resumed her quest, now working openly with others who shared her goal of bringing Thrawn home from wherever the Purrgil had taken him. The events depicted in the Ahsoka series show Morgan finally achieving her goal. With the help of former Jedi Baylan Skoll and his apprentice, Shin Hati, along with resources provided by various Imperial remnant groups, Morgan completed her hyperspace ring and successfully calculated the route to Peridea. The ring was massive, large enough to transport an entire Star Destroyer, and it used technology that combined standard Imperial engineering with techniques derived from Nightsister knowledge of hyperspace and the cosmic forces that governed it. When Morgan finally arrived at Peridea, what she found must have been both triumphant and heartbreaking. The planet was a graveyard, its surface covered with the skeletal remains of Purrgil who had come here to die, creating a vast boneyard that stretched as far as the eye could see. The ruins of the ancient witch kingdom stood empty, millennia of wind and weather having worn down structures that were already ancient when the first migration occurred. The sky itself had an eerie quality, with distant galaxies visible in the heavens, a constant reminder that this was not the galaxy Morgan had grown up in. But she was not alone. The Great Mothers were there. 3 Nightsisters who had remained on Peridea for reasons that would soon become apparent. And Grand Admiral Thrawn was there as well, having formed an alliance with these ancient witches during his years of exile. For Morgan, this moment represented vindication of everything she had worked toward. Proof that her faith in Nightsister knowledge and traditions had not been misplaced. She knelt before the Great Mothers, offering her service and her loyalty to these last representatives of the ancient Nightsister lineage. The Great Mothers acknowledged Morgan's achievement with a mixture of respect and something else. Perhaps recognition of the price she had paid to reach them, or perhaps awareness of the role she would play in what was to come. They welcomed her as a daughter of Dathomir, a sister who had endured terrible loss and kept the faith despite everything. In that moment, Morgan Elsbeth ceased to be merely a survivor and became something more. A bridge between the scattered remnants of the Nightsisters in the main galaxy and the ancient power that had remained on Peridea. The contrast between Merrin and Morgan is instructive. Both were Nightsister survivors who witnessed the destruction of their people. Both possessed considerable power and skill in the magic of their tradition. But Merrin chose to move forward, to integrate with the broader galaxy while maintaining her heritage, to use her powers to help others and forge new connections. Morgan chose to look backward, to seek revenge and restoration, to isolate herself in pursuit of a singular goal that required her to commit atrocities.
Along the way, neither path was necessarily right or wrong. They simply represent different ways of surviving trauma and different interpretations of what it means to honor the dead. Both women also demonstrated that Nightsister magic could persist even without Dathomir's constant reinforcement. Marin maintained her powers for years while traveling across the galaxy far from any natural sources of ichor. Morgan similarly retained her abilities during her time on Corvus and throughout her quest to reach Peridia. This suggests that once initiated into Nightsister magic, once the ichor has been integrated into one's blood, the connection persists, even without regular renewal. The power may diminish somewhat, may require more effort to call upon, but it does not disappear entirely. This is crucial for understanding how the Nightsister tradition could potentially survive even the near complete destruction of their civilization on Dathomir. There were likely other survivors beyond Marin and Morgan, scattered across the galaxy or hiding in the deep wilderness of Dathomir itself. Some may have abandoned their magic entirely, choosing to live as normal people to avoid drawing attention. Others may have continued practicing in secret, passing their knowledge to children or trusted students, ensuring that the tradition would not die out completely. The galaxy is vast, and even after the Empire's rise and fall, there are countless places where a handful of Nightsisters could hide and rebuild. Whether any of these hypothetical survivors will emerge in future Star Wars stories remains to be seen. The legacy of the Nightsisters extends beyond just the individuals who survived. Their magic left marks on the galaxy that persisted long after their society fell. Places where they performed powerful rituals remained charged with dark side energy. Objects they created, weapons and talismans and ritual implements, continued to hold power. Knowledge they had shared with others, whether willingly or not, spread through various channels. Darth Sidious had learned from Mother Talzin, which means some Nightsister techniques may have influenced his own approach to the dark side. Count Dooku had witnessed their powers firsthand. Even the Jedi Order had records of the Nightsisters, studies of their magic that attempted to understand this alternative approach to the Force. In a broader sense, the Nightsisters proved that the Force was more diverse and mysterious than either Jedi or Sith fully understood. Their ichor, their rituals, their ability to accomplish things through magic that seemed impossible through conventional Force techniques, all challenged the binary thinking that had dominated galactic Force philosophy for millennia. They showed that you could wield the dark side without being consumed by it, if you had the right cultural framework and support structures. They demonstrated that the Force could be made physical, visible, tangible in ways that went beyond mere telekinesis or energy projection. Their destruction was a tragedy not just for the Nightsisters themselves, but for the galaxy's understanding of the Force. An entire tradition, thousands of years old, with unique insights and techniques, was nearly wiped out in a single night. The knowledge that was lost when the Nightsister fortresses were destroyed, when the eldest witches were killed, when the ancient texts were burned, can never be fully recovered. Future generations will know the Nightsisters primarily through legends and the accounts of enemies, which inevitably distort and misunderstand what they truly were. Yet, as long as even one Nightsister survives, as long as the green glow of Ichor can still be called forth, the tradition endures. Marin proves this, Morgan proves this, and, as we shall see, the great mothers of Peridia prove this most of all. The Nightsisters are diminished, scattered, broken, but not extinct. And in the Star Wars universe, where hope and the power of legacy are constant themes, that means there is always the possibility of renewal, of the mists rising once more over Dathomir, of the old magic being taught to new generations who will carry it forward into whatever future awaits. The Great Mothers of Peridia. The revelation of the Great Mothers in the Ahsoka series fundamentally changed our understanding of Nightsister history and opened up entirely new questions about their origins, their powers, and their long-term plans. These three ancient witches, whose names are Clotho, Actropaw, and Lachesis, have been on Peridia for an unknown but presumably very long time, quite possibly since before the Great Migration that brought the bulk of the Nightsister population to the main galaxy. They represent a direct link to the oldest Nightsister traditions, to the very roots of their magic before it was adapted to Dathomir's particular conditions. The Great Mothers first appear when Morgan Elsbeth and her allies arrive on Peridia searching for Grand Admiral Thrawn. The witches have been working with Thrawn during his years of exile, a partnership that benefits both parties. Thrawn gains access to their considerable powers, particularly their ability to enhance and even resurrect his stormtroopers. The Great Mothers gain access to Thrawn's strategic genius and his eventual plan to return to the main galaxy, which they clearly desire for reasons that are not entirely spelled out, but seem ominous in their implications. Physically, the Great Mothers are striking figures. They dress in elaborate robes that seem to be woven from shadows and mist, similar to Mother Talzin's attire but even more ornate, marked with symbols and patterns that suggest ranks or roles within their ancient hierarchy. Their faces are gaunt, with skin stretched tight over bone, eyes that glow with an unsettling intensity when they use their powers. They move slowly, with a deliberate quality that suggests either great age or simply a different relationship with time than normal beings. When they speak, their voices have a resonant quality, as if multiple harmonics are present in each syllable, creating an almost hypnotic effect. The three seem to function as a unit, often speaking in sequence to complete each other's thoughts, their words flowing together like verses of a single, continuous incantation. This suggests a level of mental connection or coordination that goes beyond mere teamwork. They may be linked psychically, their minds joined through decades or centuries of working together, or they may simply be so practiced in their cooperative magic that they function as parts of a single, larger consciousness when performing their rituals. Either way, the effect is unsettling to watch. Three individuals who are somehow also one, speaking with separate voices but a unified will. Their relationship with threads is particularly intriguing and may be more than mere metaphor. The Great Mothers speak frequently of the threads of fate, the woven patterns that connect all things and determine the course of events. They claim to be able to see these threads, to read them, to understand how past, present, and future are interconnected. This is divination taken to its ultimate extreme, not merely predicting possible futures, but perceiving the underlying structure of causality itself. When they tell Morgan that she has done well, that she has followed the threads to reach them, it's unclear whether this is simply acknowledgement of her achievement or something more profound. Recognition that her journey to Peridia was fated, written into the pattern of reality itself. This philosophy raises interesting questions about free will in the Star Wars universe. The Force has always been described as having a will of its own, a cosmic intent that guides events toward particular outcomes. The Jedi speak of trusting in the Force, of allowing it to guide their actions. The Sith speak of bending the Force to their will, imposing their desires on reality through strength of passion. But the Great Mothers seem to suggest something different, that reality is already woven, already determined, and that wisdom lies not in following or dominating, but in understanding the pattern and finding one's place within it. It's a more fatalistic philosophy than either Jedi or Sith typically embrace, but it fits with the Nightsisters' general approach of working with natural forces rather than against them. The powers demonstrated by the Great Mothers are formidable, and in some cases exceed what we saw from even Mother Talzin. Their resurrection technique is particularly notable. When Thrawn's night troopers, stormtroopers who have been fighting and dying on Peridia for years, are killed in battle against Ahsoka Tano and Sabine Wren, the Great Mothers perform a ritual that brings them back. This is not the zombie resurrection that old Daka performed, not simple necromancy that creates mindless servants. The night troopers who are resurrected retain their training, their ability to use weapons and tactics, their capacity to follow complex orders. They are bound in wrappings that glow with green ichor, reinforced and enhanced by Nightsister magic in ways that make them more durable than normal stormtroopers. This suggests a much more sophisticated form of necromancy than the chant of resurrection. The Great Mothers are not just animating corpses, they are restoring function to dead bodies while keeping them under control, creating undead that are far more useful as soldiers than shambling zombies would be. The process seems to be permanent, or at least long-lasting, as the night troopers continued to function without the Great Mothers maintaining constant concentration the way old Daka had to. This implies either that the Great Mothers are so powerful they can set and forget their spells, maintaining them subconsciously, or that they have developed techniques that make the reanimation self-sustaining once initiated. The visual signature of the Great Mother's magic is similar to standard Nightsister Ichor, but perhaps more intense. The green glow brighter, the mist thicker, the sense of presence more overwhelming. When all three of them work together in ritual, the air itself seems to warp around them, reality bending slightly as they impose their will upon it. The chanting they perform uses words that seem even more ancient than the Dathomiri language, possibly the original tongue spoken on Peridia before the migration, a form of the language that has evolved differently in isolation over millennia. One of the most ominous moments in the Ahsoka series comes when the Great Mothers prepared to leave Peridia aboard Thrawn's Star Destroyer. They bring with them a cargo that is carefully sealed and described only as the Great Mother's cargo. The contents are never explicitly revealed, but the care with which it is handled and the concern expressed by Ahsoka when she discovers it suggests that it is something dangerous, possibly something that could threaten the entire main galaxy if unleashed. Speculation about what this cargo might contain ranges from ancient Nightsister artifacts to preserved samples of particularly dangerous creatures from Peridia, from weapons of mass destruction to perhaps even the bodies of powerful Nightsisters who died during whatever cataclysm destroyed the ancient Witch Kingdom. The Great Mother's decision to leave Peridia and return to the main galaxy after remaining on their homeworld for so long suggests that something has changed, that some opportunity or necessity has arisen that justifies abandoning their ancient stronghold. Perhaps they have been waiting for someone like Morgan Elsbeth to provide them with transportation. Perhaps they have foreseen through their thread reading that the time has come for the Nightsisters to return to prominence in the main galaxy. Or perhaps they are fleeing something, some threat on Peridia that makes even their considerable power insufficient for survival. Their alliance with Thrawn is pragmatic, but also seems genuine in its mutual respect. Thrawn understands that the Great Mothers are not merely tools to be used, but partners who have their own agenda and should be treated accordingly. He shows them courtesy and respect, consulting with them rather than simply issuing orders. The Great Mothers, in turn, seem to genuinely admire Thrawn's intellect and strategic capability. They refer to him as heir to the Empire, a title that suggests they see his return as significant not just politically, but perhaps cosmically.
part of the pattern they have been reading in the threads of fate. When Morgan Elsbeth is killed by Ahsoka Tano during the final confrontation on Peridia, the Great Mothers are present, but do not intervene to save her. This seems significant. Morgan had accomplished her goal, had brought them the means to return to the main galaxy, and had proven her loyalty beyond any doubt. Yet the Great Mothers let her die, either because they saw her death as part of the pattern that must be followed, or because they calculated that spending their power to save her would jeopardize the larger mission of returning home. It's a cold choice that demonstrates the Great Mothers operate on a scale and with a perspective that makes individual lives, even those of loyal followers, expendable in service of longer-term goals. After Morgan falls, the Great Mothers speak what amounts to a eulogy, acknowledging her as a daughter of Dathomir, who gave everything to restore her people. They honor her sacrifice in their own way, but they do not mourn in the sense that most beings would understand mourning. For them, death is simply part of the cycle, another transition in the endless weaving and unweaving of the threads. Morgan's death was written into the pattern, and denying it would have been as pointless as trying to prevent the sun from setting. The Great Mothers successfully escape Peridia aboard Thrawn's Star Destroyer, bringing their mysterious cargo with them to the main galaxy. This sets up future conflicts and storylines that have yet to unfold. What do they plan to do now that they have returned? Will they attempt to rebuild the Nightsister civilization, perhaps gathering the scattered survivors like Marin and teaching them the ancient techniques that have been preserved on Peridia? Will they seek revenge against the Empire's remnants for the massacre of their cousins on Dathomir? Or do they have some other agenda entirely? Something connected to their thread reading and their understanding of cosmic patterns? One particularly intriguing possibility is that the Great Mothers may attempt to reclaim Dathomir itself. The planet still exists, still carries the dark side energies that made it so conducive to Nightsister magic. The natural sources of Ichor have not been destroyed, merely diminished. With the Great Mother's ancient knowledge and powerful magic, it might be possible to revitalize the planet, to restore the flow of Ichor and rebuild the fortresses that were demolished during the massacre. This would be a massive undertaking, requiring years, if not decades, of work. But for witches who have already waited millennia on Peridia, such timescales might not seem unreasonable. The Great Mothers also represent a challenge to the New Republic and to Force users like Ahsoka Tano and any surviving Jedi. They are powerful dark side users who do not follow Sith philosophy, and therefore cannot be approached or understood using the frameworks that the Jedi developed for dealing with Sith. They are not driven by emotion in the way that Sith are, not consumed by hatred or passion. They are cold, calculating, patient, and they wield powers that even experienced Force users find difficult to counter, because they operate according to different rules. The rituals and spells of Nightsister magic do not map neatly onto Jedi combat techniques or philosophical approaches. Moreover, the Great Mother's ability to enhance Thrawn's forces with their necromancy and other magics
makes them a force multiplier in any military conflict. A star destroyer crewed by undead night troopers who feel no pain, no fear, no hesitation, who can be destroyed and then resurrected to fight again, represents a nightmarish opponent for any conventional military force. Combined with Thrawn's strategic genius and the resources he has presumably been gathering during his return to Imperial space, the alliance between the Great Mothers and the Imperial remnants could pose a genuine threat to the New Republic's stability. The theological implications of the Great Mothers are also worth considering. They claim to read the threads of fate, to understand destiny and the cosmic pattern. If this is true, if they genuinely can perceive the structure of causality itself, then they possess knowledge that could be invaluable or incredibly dangerous, depending on how it is used. Imagine knowing with certainty what will happen, seeing the consequences of actions before they are taken, understanding how every choice ripples outward through the fabric of reality. Such knowledge could allow for perfect strategic planning, for avoiding disasters before they occur, for guiding civilization toward optimal outcomes. But it could also lead to a form of paralysis, to the recognition that free will is illusory, and that all actions are predetermined. The Great Mothers seem to have made peace with this knowledge, but would other beings be able to do the same? The question of what happened to the ancient witch kingdom on Peridia remains unanswered. The ruins suggest a civilization that was once vast and powerful, with architecture that spanned continents and magic that shaped the very planet. But something destroyed it, reduced it to empty stone and fading memories. Was it internal conflict, rival factions of Nightsisters fighting each other in wars that grew increasingly destructive? Was it an external threat, some enemy powerful enough to overthrow the witches even on their homeworld? Was it a natural catastrophe, perhaps connected to the Purgil who come to Peridia to die, their death releasing energies that poisoned the planet over time? Or was it something more esoteric, a magical experiment that went wrong, a ritual that succeeded too well, a price paid for some cosmic bargain that the Great Mothers negotiated? The Great Mothers likely know the truth, but they have not shared it. Perhaps they are ashamed of what happened. Perhaps they believe the knowledge is too dangerous. Perhaps they simply see no point in dwelling on the past when the future is what matters. Whatever the reason, the ruins of Peridia stand as a warning that even the mightiest civilizations can fall, that power and knowledge alone are not sufficient to guarantee survival. The Nightsisters who built that ancient kingdom had all the advantages, a whole planet to themselves, thousands of years to develop their magic, no external enemies to threaten them, and yet they fell just as surely as Dathomir fell millennia later. The Great Mothers represent continuity with that ancient past, a living link to traditions and knowledge that predate almost everything else in the Star Wars galaxy. They are the keepers of the oldest Night Sister wisdom, the practitioners of the original forms of Ichor manipulation before the tradition was adapted to Dathomir. What they know, what they can teach, what they plan to do with their return to the main galaxy, all of this remains largely mysterious. But their presence alone changes the landscape of Star Wars lore, confirming that the Night Sisters are far older and far more significant than many had realized, that their story is not over, but entering a new chapter. The broader context: Night Sister magic in Star Wars cosmology. To fully appreciate the Night Sisters and their Ichor-based magic, we need to step back and consider where they fit in the broader cosmology of Star Wars. The galaxy far, far away has always been defined by the tension between the light side and the dark side of the Force, between the Jedi Order with its philosophy of peace and selflessness, and the Sith with their embrace of passion and power. For most of Star Wars history, both in-universe and in terms of our real-world storytelling, these were presented as the only two significant Force traditions, the only paths that mattered on a galactic scale. But the deeper we delve into Star Wars lore, the more we discover that this binary is incomplete. There are other Force traditions scattered throughout the galaxy, each with their own philosophy and techniques. The Guardians of the Wills on Jedha, the Lasat with their connection to the Ashla, the Dagoyan Masters of Bardada, the Falanasi with their white current. All of these represent alternative approaches to the Force that don't fit neatly into either Jedi or Sith categories. The Night Sisters are perhaps the most developed of these alternative traditions, the one we have seen most extensively in canon material, and they demonstrate that the Force is far more diverse and mysterious than the Jedi Council ever acknowledged. What makes Night Sister magic unique is not just that it uses the dark side without being Sith, though that is significant. It's that their approach to the Force is fundamentally different from the metaphysical framework that both Jedi and Sith share. When a Jedi or Sith uses the Force, they are working with an invisible energy field that they can sense and manipulate through mental focus and willpower. The Force remains ephemeral, something felt rather than seen. But Night Sister Ichor makes the Force physical, transforms spiritual energy into something that has mass and volume, that can be touched and shaped and stored. This physicality has profound implications. It suggests that the Force is not merely an energy field, but something more complex, something that can exist in multiple states, like matter can be solid, liquid, or gas. The Ichor is the Force in its material state, condensed and concentrated until it becomes visible and tangible. This raises fascinating questions about the nature of reality in the Star Wars universe. If the Force can be made physical, what does that say about the relationship between spirit and matter, between the metaphysical and the physical? Are they truly separate categories? Or are they simply different expressions of a single underlying reality? The Nightsisters' ritual approach to magic also differs significantly from how Jedi and Sith train. A Jedi Padawan spends years learning to sense the Force, to quiet their mind, to achieve the mental discipline necessary to manipulate the Force through pure concentration. A Sith apprentice learns to channel their emotions, to use passion as fuel for their powers, to dominate the Force through strength of will. Both approaches are internal and personal, focused on the individual Force user developing their own connection and capability. Nightsister magic, by contrast, is learned through specific techniques that are passed down through teaching. The incantations must be memorized precisely. The gestures must be performed correctly. The ritual components must be gathered and prepared according to ancient recipes. There is less emphasis on individual connection to the Force and more on following established procedures that are known to work. This makes Nightsister magic more reliable in some ways. You don't need to have a particularly strong personal connection to the Force if you can perform the ritual correctly. But it also makes it more limited. If you don't know the spell for a particular effect, you can't simply improvise the way a skilled Jedi or Sith might. The communal aspect of Nightsister society reinforces this distinction. While Jedi live in community at the temple and train together, their actual use of the Force is typically individual. Each Jedi develops their own relationship with the Force, their own strengths and specialties. Sith are even more individualistic, with the rule of two ensuring that there are only ever two of them at a time, master and apprentice, who will eventually turn on each other. But Nightsisters practice their magic collectively, with covens working together to perform rituals that would be impossible for any single witch. Their power is multiplied through cooperation rather than being diluted by it. This communal approach may also explain why the Nightsisters never sought to expand their influence beyond Dathomir before the Clone Wars. The Sith wanted to rule the galaxy because their philosophy emphasized domination and conquest. The Jedi felt obligated to maintain peace and order because their philosophy emphasized service and protection. But the Nightsisters' philosophy emphasized survival and the maintenance of their traditions. They had no inherent drive to conquer or to save others. As long as they were left alone to practice their magic and maintain their society on Dathomir, they were content. It was only when they were threatened, or when leaders like Mother Talzin saw opportunities for advancement, that they became involved in galactic affairs. The Nightsisters' relationship with death is another area where they diverge from both Jedi and Sith. Jedi believe in becoming one with the Force upon death, with particularly powerful or enlightened Jedi learning to maintain their consciousness as Force ghosts who can continue to guide the living. Sith pursue immortality through various means, trying to cheat death entirely through essence transfer or other dark side techniques. But Nightsisters see death as a boundary that can be crossed in both directions, a membrane rather than a wall. Their necromancy treats death as a temporary condition that can be reversed, at least in physical terms, if not spiritual ones. The dead can be brought back to serve the living, and the living can temporarily shed their physical forms to exist as spirits when necessary. This view of death as fluid rather than final may be connected to their understanding of the threads of fate. If reality is a woven pattern where past, present, and future are all part of a single design, then death is simply one thread among many, no more or less significant than any other transition. The Great Mother's apparent lack of emotional response to Morgan Elsbeth's death makes more sense in this context. They are not callous or uncaring. They simply perceive death differently, as part of the pattern that cannot and should not be resisted. The Nightsisters also challenge the assumption that dark side use inevitably leads to physical and moral corruption. The Sith show clear signs of corruption the more deeply they immerse themselves in the dark side. Emperor Palpatine's physical appearance deteriorated over the years, his eyes becoming yellow, his face becoming more cadaverous. Darth Vader was sustained only by his mechanical suit after his injuries on Mustafar, his body a burnt ruin. And morally, the Sith are defined by their selfishness, their cruelty, their willingness to commit any atrocity in pursuit of power. The Nightsisters, despite wielding the dark side constantly, do not show the same level of physical corruption. Mother Talzin was ancient, but powerful, her appearance striking rather than deteriorated. The Great Mothers are clearly very old, but do not seem physically damaged by their magic. Merrin shows no signs of corruption from her use of Nightsister powers. This suggests that it is not the dark side itself that corrupts, but rather how it is used and the philosophy that guides its use. The Nightsisters' communal approach, their focus on tradition and ritual rather than personal aggrandizement, their connection to the natural cycles of life and death. All of these seem to provide protection against the corruption that plagues the Sith. There are theories that the difference lies in the source of the power. Sith draw directly on the dark side of the Force, channeling it through their own emotions and will, which means it passes through them and potentially warps them in the process. Nightsisters channel Ichor, which is the Force made physical and external to themselves. They are manipulating something outside their bodies rather than drawing it through their bodies. This external focus might provide insulation against corruption, like using insulated gloves to handle something toxic. The Ichor does affect them when they breathe it in during initiation. It becomes part of their blood, but perhaps the initial incorporation is done carefully, under controlled conditions that prevent the kind of runaway corruption that afflicts Sith. The existence of the Nightsisters also raises questions about midichlorians. those microscopic organisms that live in symbiosis with living cells and create the Force. The Jedi measure Force potential by testing midichlorian counts in a person's blood, with higher counts indicating greater Force sensitivity. Do the Nightsisters have particularly high midichlorian counts, or does their magic work through a different mechanism? The fact that they can initiate people into their tradition by having them breathe in ichor-infused mist suggests that Force sensitivity might be alterable, that it's not purely determined by birth, but can be enhanced through the right rituals. This challenges one of the fundamental assumptions of Jedi philosophy, the idea that Force ability is an innate trait that you either have or don't have. Of course, it's possible that not everyone can be initiated into Nightsister magic. Perhaps only those who already have some latent Force sensitivity, even if it's below the threshold that the Jedi would notice, can successfully integrate the ichor into their system. Those without any Force sensitivity at all might simply die if they attempted the initiation, their bodies unable to handle the infusion of condensed Force energy. This would explain why the Nightsisters maintained their bloodlines so carefully, using the Night Brothers for breeding stock, but only raising female children to become witches. They needed to preserve the genetic factors that made initiation possible. The broader Star Wars canon also includes hints of other Force traditions that share some characteristics with the Nightsisters. The Dathomirian witches, mentioned in various legends material, practiced similar magic. The witches of Dathomir from older expanded universe stories had abilities that resembled what we now see from the Nightsisters. This suggests a possible shared origin, or at least cross-pollination of techniques. Perhaps there is an even older tradition, predating both the Jedi and the Sith, that understood the Force in more primal and practical terms, as something to be manipulated directly rather than merely channeled. The Nightsisters could be one surviving branch of this ancient tradition, preserving knowledge that other groups lost or abandoned. The implications of all this for the future of Star Wars storytelling are significant. We now know that the Force can be wielded in ways that neither the Jedi nor the Sith ever mastered, that there are techniques and philosophies that have been overlooked or deliberately suppressed. The New Republic, trying to rebuild the Jedi Order after its near destruction, might benefit from studying Nightsister magic to understand the full range of what is possible with the Force. Or they might decide that such knowledge is too dangerous and should be sealed away or destroyed. Either choice would have consequences that ripple through future storylines. The Nightsisters prove that you can be powerful without being evil, that you can wield the dark side without being consumed by it if you have the right cultural framework and community support. But they also show the dangers of isolation and the vulnerability that comes from tying your power to a specific place. Their near extinction demonstrates that even the most formidable abilities cannot protect you if you fail to engage with the broader galaxy and build alliances that could provide support when crisis comes. The Nightsisters stood alone, and they were destroyed because of it. The survivors, like Marin, who integrated into larger communities, were the ones who endured. As Star Wars continues to expand its universe, exploring new eras and introducing new characters, the Nightsisters and their Ichor-based magic stand as a reminder that the Force is vast and mysterious, that our understanding of it will always be incomplete, and that there are always new wonders and horrors waiting to be discovered in the shadowy corners of the galaxy. The green glow of Nightsister Ichor represents something fundamental about the Star Wars universe that is easy to overlook in the grand conflicts between Republic and Empire, between Jedi and Sith. It represents the idea that the galaxy is not fully explored, not fully understood, that mysteries persist even in an age of hyperspace travel and galactic government. The Nightsisters remind us that there are still places where ancient traditions flourish, where power exists outside the established hierarchies, where the rules that govern civilized space do not necessarily apply. This theme of hidden knowledge and alternative traditions becomes increasingly important as Star Wars moves beyond the Skywalker saga into new narrative territory. The High Republic era, set centuries before the prequel trilogy, is already exploring other Force traditions and showing us a galaxy where the Jedi Order was just one of many groups that wielded the Force, not yet the dominant institution it would become. The Nightsisters fit perfectly into this expanded understanding of the Force, showing us that even during the height of Jedi and Sith conflicts, there were other players with their own agendas and their own considerable powers. The relationship between Nightsister magic and technology is also worth examining. While the Jedi and Sith both use technology extensively, lightsabers, starships, droids, their Force abilities themselves are separate from technology. You can't build a machine that uses the Force the way a living being can. But Nightsister magic seems to have some compatibility with technology that other Force traditions lack. Morgan Elsbeth's hyperspace ring combined conventional Imperial engineering with principles derived from Nightsister knowledge of hyperspace and cosmic forces. The Nightsisters' energy bows are technological weapons enhanced by Ichor. Mother Talzin's tainted Kyber crystal shows that their magic can alter technological components in ways that persist even when the witch who created them is no longer present. This suggests that Ichor, because it is the Force made physical, can interact with physical technology in ways that pure Force energy cannot. You can infuse a weapon with Ichor and it will retain that enhancement. You can soak a crystal in Ichor and permanently alter its properties. This makes Nightsister magic potentially more useful for creating lasting artifacts and enhanced technologies than Jedi or Sith abilities, which typically require the constant presence and attention of a Force user to maintain. A Jedi can use the Force to lift a starship, but as soon as they stop concentrating, the ship falls. A Nightsister could potentially create an enchanted platform that floats indefinitely, without requiring constant attention. The limitations of this approach should not be understated, however. The process of creating magically enhanced objects is presumably difficult, time-consuming, and requires considerable skill. Otherwise, the Nightsisters would have created entire arsenals of enchanted weapons and distributed them widely. The fact that such artifacts are rare suggests that making them is challenging even for skilled witches. There may also be limits on how complex or powerful the enhancements can be, or on how long they persist without periodic renewal. Still, the basic principle that Nightsister magic can permanently alter physical objects opens up possibilities that other Force traditions cannot match. The ecological aspect of Nightsister magic is another dimension worth exploring. The ichor arises from blood, trees, and mist, from the natural cycles of life, death, and decay on Dathomir. This means the Nightsisters are fundamentally connected to their environment in ways that most Force users are not. A Jedi can meditate in a barren desert or in the depths of space and still access the Force. A Sith can draw on their own emotions regardless of their surroundings, but a Nightsister is more powerful when surrounded by the natural sources of ichor, when connected to the ecosystem that produces and sustains the green mist. This connection makes Nightsister magic more sustainable in some ways and more vulnerable in others. It's sustainable because as long as the ecosystem remains healthy, the ichor will continue to flow. You don't need to mine rare resources or build elaborate infrastructure. The planet itself provides everything necessary, but it's vulnerable because if the ecosystem is damaged, if the forests are burned, or the sources of ichor are poisoned, then the entire tradition is threatened. This is exactly what General Grievous attempted during the Battle of Dathomir, not just killing the Nightsisters, but destroying their ritual sites and the natural features that sustained their power. The question of whether Nightsister magic could be practiced successfully on other worlds is interesting. Merrin demonstrates that a trained Nightsister can use her powers while far from Dathomir. But could someone be initiated into the tradition on a different planet? Could you create artificial sources of ichor using technology and synthetic compounds? Or is there something unique about Dathomir specifically, some quality of its dark side energy or its ecosystem that cannot be replicated elsewhere? The fact that the Nightsisters spent thousands of years on Dathomir without establishing colonies on other worlds suggests that their magic is indeed tied to that specific planet in ways that make expansion difficult. However, Peridia complicates this analysis. The Great Mothers have maintained their powers on the original Nightsister homeworld for millennia, which proves that Dathomir is not the only planet where ichor can flow. Perhaps what matters is not the specific world, but rather the presence of certain conditions: strong dark side energy, a thriving but dangerous ecosystem, natural phenomena that create the mist and other physical manifestations that ichor requires. If these conditions could be found or created on other worlds, then perhaps new Nightsister communities could be established, ensuring the survival of this tradition even if Dathomir itself were completely destroyed. The theological or spiritual beliefs of the Nightsisters are somewhat opaque in the material we have available. They clearly revere the dead, building elaborate tombs and preserving bodies for potential resurrection. They speak of spirits and seem to believe in some form of consciousness that persists after death, at least temporarily. The Great Mother's focus on the threads of fate suggests a belief in destiny or cosmic order, in patterns that transcend individual choice. But we don't know if the Nightsisters worship any gods, if they have creation myths explaining the origin of Ichor, or if they believe in any form of afterlife beyond the spectral existence that powerful witches can achieve. This theological ambiguity is actually quite fitting for Star Wars, which has always been somewhat vague about the deeper metaphysics of the Force. We know the Force exists and has a will, but is it conscious in any meaningful sense? Does it have goals and intentions? Or is it simply the sum total of all life creating a field that self-organizing principles guide toward balance? The Jedi and Sith have different answers to these questions, but both acknowledge that the answers are ultimately mysterious. The Nightsisters' thread-based cosmology suggests they have their own answers, but those answers have not been fully revealed to us yet. One particularly intriguing possibility is that the Nightsisters' understanding of the Force is actually more accurate than the Jedi or Sith versions. The Jedi see the Force in somewhat simplistic terms, as light versus dark, good versus evil, with the goal being to remain in the light and avoid the dark. The Sith embrace the dark while dismissing the light as weakness, but the Nightsisters seem to recognize that these categories are less absolute than they appear, that the Force has many expressions and many applications that don't fit neatly into binary categories. Their willingness to use dark side power without moral judgment, treating it simply as a tool rather than as inherently corrupting or empowering, might reflect a more mature and nuanced understanding. If future Star Wars stories continue to develop the Nightsisters and their philosophy, we might learn more about this alternative cosmology. We might discover that their thread-based understanding of reality has practical applications beyond divination, that the patterns they perceive are not merely predictive, but can be manipulated directly. Imagine a witch who can literally pull on the threads of fate, altering probability or ensuring certain outcomes by directly editing the cosmic pattern. Such power would be beyond anything we've seen from Jedi or Sith, representing a fundamentally different level of engagement with the Force. The cultural impact and storytelling potential. Beyond their in-universe significance, the Nightsisters have had a considerable impact on Star Wars as a franchise and on how fans understand the Force. When they were first introduced in the Clone Wars animated series, they represented something genuinely new, a Force tradition that looked and felt different from anything we had seen before. The visual design, with the green glowing magic and the distinctive appearance of the Nightsisters themselves, was immediately memorable. The vocal performances, particularly Katie Sackhoff as Bo-Katan, actually, pardon me, I meant to reference the voice actresses who portrayed the Nightsisters themselves. The animation style of the Clone Wars allowed the Nightsisters to be portrayed in ways that would have been difficult or impossible in live action at the time. The green ichor could flow and swirl with a fluidity that practical effects or early CGI might have struggled to achieve. The undead army raised by Old Daka could be shown in all its horrifying glory without the uncanny valley problems that can plague attempts to show zombies in live action. The transformation of Savage Opress could be depicted as a genuinely painful and disturbing process without needing to subject a real actor to hours of makeup application. Animation freed the storytellers to fully realize the nightmarish and fantastical aspects of Nightsister magic. The transition to live action in the Ahsoka series demonstrated that modern special effects have caught up to the vision. The Great Mothers look suitably eerie and powerful in live action, their robes flowing naturally while still seeming otherworldly. The green glow of their magic translates well to live action, maintaining its distinctive appearance while fitting into the more grounded visual style of the Disney Plus shows. And Morgan Elsbeth, played by Diana Lee Inosanto, brought a physicality and intensity to the role that made her feel like a genuine threat, despite being a relatively minor character in terms of screen time. The Nightsisters have also become popular among fans for several reasons beyond their cool visual design. First, they represent powerful female characters in a franchise that, historically, has been criticized for not always giving women substantial roles. The Nightsisters are not sidekicks or love interests or victims needing rescue. They are formidable warriors and practitioners of magic who command respect and fear in equal measure. Mother Talzin held her own against Mace Windu. Asajj Ventress was one of the most dangerous assassins in the galaxy. Merrin became a crucial member of the Mantis crew. These are characters defined by their own agency and power, not by their relationships to male characters. Second, the Nightsisters offer an alternative to the strict binaries that sometimes make Star Wars feel limiting. You don't have to be a selfless Jedi or a selfish Sith. You can be something else entirely, wielding dark side power for your own purposes without being consumed by rage or driven to conquer the galaxy. This middle ground appeals to fans who find both the Jedi and Sith philosophies somewhat extreme or unrealistic. The Nightsisters show that you can be morally complex, neither purely good nor purely evil, and still be a compelling and valid approach to the Force. Third, the mystery and incomplete information about Nightsister lore creates space for fan speculation and creative interpretation. We don't know everything about their history, their beliefs, or their ultimate fate. This opens up possibilities for fan fiction, for role-playing game campaigns, for personal headcanons that can fill in the gaps in ways that resonate with individual fans. The community that has built up around Nightsister lore is creative and engaged, producing art and stories and theories that enrich the broader Star Wars experience. From a storytelling perspective, the Nightsisters offer writers a flexible tool for introducing new challenges and complications. Need a power that can challenge your Jedi protagonist in unexpected ways? Bring in a Nightsister with abilities the Jedi has never encountered. Need a morally ambiguous faction that can serve as either ally or enemy, depending on the circumstances? The Nightsisters' pragmatic approach to survival and their lack of investment in galactic politics makes them perfect for that role. Need to explore themes of cultural preservation, of traditions surviving despite overwhelming odds. The scattered survivors of the Battle of Dathomir provide that narrative opportunity. The Great Mother's return to the main galaxy in the Ahsoka series sets up numerous potential storylines for future Star Wars content. Will they attempt to rebuild the Nightsister civilization on Dathomir or establish themselves on a new world? Will they come into conflict with the New Republic, or might they find common ground against the Imperial remnants? What is in the mysterious cargo they brought from Peridia? And what happens when it is finally revealed or unleashed? These questions create anticipation and give future writers clear hooks to build stories around. There's also the question of how the Jedi Order, should it be successfully rebuilt, will respond to the presence of powerful dark side users who are not Sith and who have legitimate grievances against the Republic that allowed their near extinction. Will the new Jedi be flexible enough to acknowledge that the Nightsisters are not inherently evil, that their use of the dark side is different from Sith corruption? Or will old prejudices and fears lead to conflict? A storyline that explores the Jedi trying to move beyond their traditional binary thinking, learning to work with, or at least coexist with the Nightsisters, could provide interesting character development and philosophical depth. The potential for crossover with other Star Wars properties is also significant. Imagine Nightsisters appearing in The Mandalorian, perhaps hired as mercenaries or encountered on some remote world. Imagine a Nightsister character in the upcoming Star Wars Skeleton Crew, or in whatever project follows Ahsoka. Imagine a story set during the High Republic era that explores the Nightsisters during a different period of their history, when their civilization on Dathomir was still thriving and intact. The flexibility of the concept and the visual distinctiveness of their magic makes the Nightsisters easy to integrate into almost any Star Wars story without feeling forced or out of place. There's even potential for Nightsister characters to appear in the upcoming films that will explore different eras and corners of the Star Wars galaxy. A movie focused on the dawn of the Jedi could show the first encounters between the nascent Jedi Order and the Nightsisters, establishing the complicated relationship between these traditions. A movie set after the sequel trilogy could show a fully rebuilt Nightsister civilization, demonstrating what happens when they have time and resources to recover from the disasters that nearly destroyed them. The possibilities are genuinely vast. Conclusion. The thread continues. We've journeyed together through thousands of years of Nightsister history, from the ancient witch kingdom on Peridia to the vibrant covens of Dathomir, through the catastrophic battle that nearly ended their civilization, and finally to the survivors who carry their traditions forward into an uncertain future. We've examined the nature of ichor, that luminescent green substance that makes the force tangible and transforms invisible spiritual energy into something that can be shaped by skilled hands. We've explored the powers that Nightsister magic grants, from the raising of the dead to the transformation of living warriors into enhanced versions of themselves. We've studied the greatest practitioners of this ancient art, Mother Talzin, whose ambition and maternal devotion drove her to challenge even Darth Sidious himself, whose power was so formidable that it took the combined efforts of a Sith Lord and a cyborg general to bring her down. Old Daka, who maintained the chant of resurrection against impossible odds, giving her sisters a chance at survival even as she faced her own death. Marin, who survived trauma and manipulation to become a hero in her own right, proving that Nightsister magic could be used for good when guided by compassion rather than revenge. Morgan Elsbeth, whose single-minded pursuit of the Nightsisters' origins led her across the galaxy and ultimately to the ancient homeworld itself, and the great mothers of Peridia, those enigmatic and powerful figures whose return to the main galaxy promises to reshape the future of their entire tradition. We've examined how Nightsister magic differs from both Jedi and Sith approaches to the Force, how it makes the spiritual physical, how it relies on ritual and community rather than individual power, how it treats death as a boundary that can be crossed rather than an absolute ending. We've explored the philosophical implications of their thread-based cosmology. The idea that reality is a woven pattern that can be read and potentially influenced by those with sufficient skill and knowledge. And we've considered the broader impact of the Nightsisters on Star Wars as a franchise, how they've expanded our understanding of what the Force can be, how they've provided representation for powerful female characters, how they've created narrative opportunities for stories that move beyond the traditional Jedi versus Sith formula that dominated Star Wars for so many years. The green mist of Ichor continues to flow, even if more thinly than before. The covens are broken, but not extinct. The fortresses are ruined, but can potentially be rebuilt. The ancient knowledge has been scattered, but is being preserved by survivors like Marin and the great mothers who carry millennia of tradition in their memories and their blood. The Nightsisters have endured losses that would have destroyed lesser cultures completely, yet they persist. This persistence, this refusal to simply fade away into extinction, is perhaps the most impressive aspect of their story. What makes the Nightsisters compelling is not just their cool powers or their distinctive visual aesthetic, though both of those certainly help. It's that they represent something universal. The struggle to preserve cultural identity in the face of overwhelming pressure to assimilate or be destroyed. They are indigenous people trying to maintain their traditions, while the galaxy around them changes in ways that threaten those traditions. They are survivors of genocide, carrying the weight of their dead while trying to forge paths forward that honor that memory without being trapped by it. They are practitioners of an ancient art in a modern galaxy that has little patience for the old ways. Every Force tradition in Star Wars ultimately grapples with questions of legacy and continuity. The Jedi Order was nearly wiped out during Order 66, reduced to scattered survivors who had to decide how much of the old ways to preserve and how much to adapt for the new era. The Sith have died out and been reborn multiple times throughout their history, with each iteration arguing that they are the true inheritors of the ancient Sith legacy. The Nightsisters face the same challenge now. The Great Mothers represent the pure, unbroken lineage stretching back to Peridia itself. Marin represents adaptation and integration with the broader galaxy. Other survivors, if they exist, might represent different paths entirely. How these various interpretations of what it means to be a Nightsister will coexist or conflict remains to be seen. The metaphor of threads that the Great Mothers use is particularly apt for understanding the Nightsisters' role in the broader Star Wars narrative. They are a thread running through galactic history, sometimes visible and prominent, sometimes hidden beneath other events, but always present, always connected to the larger pattern. They touched the clone wars through Mother Talzin's schemes and Asajj Ventress's actions. They touched the Imperial era through survivors like Morgan Elsbeth, who served the Empire while pursuing their own agendas. They touched the New Republic era through Marin's heroism and the Great Mother's alliance with Thrawn. At every major juncture in recent galactic history, Nightsisters have been present, influencing events in ways both obvious and subtle. This continuous presence across different eras makes the Nightsisters ideal subjects for ongoing storytelling. They can appear in almost any time period with minimal justification required. A story set during the Old Republic era? The Nightsisters were there on Dathomir, maintaining their traditions in isolation. A story during the High Republic? Same answer. The Clone Wars? We've seen their involvement extensively. The Imperial era? Survivors were scattered but active. The New Republic and beyond. The Great Mothers have returned. This temporal flexibility means that writers have enormous freedom to tell Nightsister stories whenever they choose, connecting them to existing narratives or creating entirely new ones. The future of the Nightsisters in Star Wars canon is bright with possibility. Will the Great Mothers succeed in rebuilding their civilization? Will they come into conflict with the New Republic, or will they find ways to coexist? Will more survivors emerge from hiding now that the Empire has fallen and the galaxy is relatively safer? Will we see young people being initiated into Nightsister magic? A new generation learning the ancient ways and adapting them for modern circumstances. Will someone finally open that mysterious cargo from Peridia and reveal what the Great Mothers considered important enough to transport across intergalactic space. These questions and countless others await answers in future Star Wars stories. What we can say with certainty is that the Nightsisters matter. They matter to the lore of Star Wars, enriching our understanding of the Force and showing us traditions that the Jedi and Sith never imagined. They matter to the narratives being told, providing antagonists, allies, and morally complex characters whose motivations go beyond simple good and evil. They matter to fans who see in these witches reflections of their own struggles to maintain identity and tradition in a world that often pressures people to conform. And they matter to the franchise as a whole, demonstrating that Star Wars can continue to evolve and introduce new concepts without losing the essential elements that made it beloved in the first place. The green glow of Nightsister Ichor, rising from the blood and trees and mist of Dathomir, from the ruins of Peridia, from wherever these powerful witches gather to practice their ancient art, is a light that refuses to be extinguished. It flickers, perhaps, dimmed by loss and tragedy, threatened by enemies who fear what they don't understand. But it endures. As long as even one Nightsister survives, as long as the incantations are remembered and the rituals are performed, as long as someone draws on that green, luminescent power and shapes it according to their will, the tradition continues. The thread, to use the Great Mother's metaphor, remains unbroken. It stretches from the ancient past into an unknown future, connecting generations across millennia, binding the living to the dead and to those yet to be born. And so our exploration of the Nightsisters comes to a close, though their story is far from over. We've walked through mist-shrouded forests on Dathomir, descended into the tombs where the honored dead rest awaiting the call to rise again, stood in the ruins of Peridia and imagined the civilization that once thrived there. We've witnessed the terrible beauty of Ichor flowing freely, green light illuminating the darkness, transforming the possible into the actual through will and word and ritual. We've met witches who commanded respect and fear in equal measure, whose powers challenged our understanding of what the Force could be, whose stories added depth and nuance to the Star Wars galaxy. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into Nightsister lore, if these explorations of the mysteries and powers of Ichor-based magic have resonated with you, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button. It genuinely helps me continue creating this kind of content. These long-form examinations of the deeper lore that makes Star Wars such a rich and enduring universe. Let me know in the comments which aspect of Nightsister magic you found most interesting. which character's story affected you most deeply, or what you hope to see in future Star Wars content featuring these formidable witches. Until next time, may you walk safely through the mists. May you understand the threads that bind us all together. May you respect the old magic even as you embrace the new. And may the green glow of Ichor remind you that the Force is vast and mysterious, that there are always new wonders to discover in the galaxy far, far away. The Nightsisters endure, and their legacy will continue to unfold in stories yet to be told. Sleep well, and may your dreams be filled with the ancient wisdom of witches who have seen empires rise and fall, who have survived attempts to destroy them completely, and who persist because their traditions are too powerful, too meaningful, too essential to ever truly die. Good night, and may the threads of fate weave kindly for you.